Thank you. Good morning. It's wonderful to see so many friends here, students, faculty, and staff, wonderful friends of the college. This is such an exciting event in our annual calendar because it really is a moment for us to not only stop and reflect on the theme of each year's program, but to step back and think about what this program means for us as a community. It's an opportunity to think about the ways we want to live our lives, to think about the ways that we can put our own educations and the gifts that come along with that education in the service of others. And we know that this award has been made possible through the vision of the late Lee Posey. He and his wife, Sally Posey, have endowed this award and endowed opportunities for students to study global leadership. And we are grateful for their vision. Sally will be there this evening, and you'll get a chance to meet her. She's looking forward to that. Now, I asked if I would get to introduce today's speaker, Shigeru Ban. Will I get to introduce him? And they said no. And I said, well, what do I get to do? And I was told, I have an even more important job, which is I am going to introduce the student who will introduce today's speaker. And that's good, because I never like to follow our students, because they're always so wonderful. Last time I heard Jake speak, in fact, it was in the small chapel, and he received a standing ovation. It was in front of a community group. So you might want to just review your notes, Mr. Ban, and make sure you feel up to this. I will tell you that Jake is a senior from Southern California. He's majoring in nonprofit organization and public service with a minor in leadership studies. On campus, he's involved with Habitat for Humanity and the Posey Leadership Award. He has studied abroad in Australia and also in Turkey. And he says that those experiences help to spark his interest in leadership, politics, and social movements. I have no doubt that you will be a world changer in the years ahead. Please welcome Jake Stanley.
Thank you, President Haas. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Shigeru Ban to you today. You can read a short biography in your program, but there are a few highlights I'd like to mention. When I heard that Shigeru Ban was coming to Austin College, I was initially excited. After all, having seen 3 Posey Award winners during my tenure here, I knew that the caliber of person recognized today would be great indeed. Since then, my interest in Ban has only grown the more I've learned about this man and his world-changing architectural work. A pioneer of change, Shigeru Ban began with an interest and respect for materials and a desire not to waste them. In 1994, when the United Nations accepted his offer to help build disaster shelters with paper tubing, a new approach to life-saving design was born. Since then, Mr. Ban has gone on to design relief structures in over 20 different countries, utilizing sustainable materials and design practices. His work is evident at nearly every major disaster site of the past 2 decades. From the Kobe earthquake, which killed 6,000 people, to the 7.4 scale earthquake in Turkey that left 500,000 homeless, his paper structures have been a brilliant solution for humanitarian efforts. Personally, the more I learn about this man and his approach to design, the more I am impressed. His work is saving lives and changing our world for the better. I'm honored to welcome the 2015 Austin College Posey Leadership Awarder, Mr. Shigeru Ban.
Thank you very much, Jack and President Haas and everyone involved in this wonderful event. This is really my honor to be here. And also, this is my 4th time to Dallas. And this is an important city for architecture. As you know, the Kimball Museum, designed by Louis Kahn, this is one of the most important museums in the world. And now they have good extension by Renzo Piano. And also Renzo Piano is the one who designed so-called Pompidou Center. It's a national modern art museum in France. And I was happy. I was very lucky to win the competition for the extension of the Pompidou Center. So there's some relationship. Today, I'm going to show you my work from a very early period. Immediately after I graduated from Cooper Union in New York, I went back to Tokyo to start my own practice. And also I include some of the disaster relief projects. I started this kind of disaster relief project after practicing as architect 10 years. And I started having doubt. Not doubt, but I was quite disappointed about my profession as architect because we are mostly working for privileged people who has money and power. Because the money and power is invisible, they hire us to design big monument to show off their power and money, even historically same. But I'm not saying no, I have no objection because I love to make a monument too. But I thought that I still have to use my experience and knowledge, not only for privileged people, but also general public, even people who lost their houses by natural disasters. And I must say they are no longer natural. They are becoming man-made disasters. For example, earthquake itself doesn't kill people, but collapse of the building kills people. That is responsibility for architects. But there is no architect working in disaster area because we are too busy working for privileged people. But I thought even temporary housing, the government is not looking for the comfortability and beauty for temporary housing, but we can make them better and more comfortable. So that is why I start working in this kind of the field. Can I start my slide, please? 1985, I went back to Tokyo to start my own practice without any experience as architect. So I started designing exhibition. This is one of the first exhibition I designed in 1986. This is exhibition for architect from Finland, Finnish architect, very famous one, Alvar Aalto, I'm sorry. He always designed the building with natural curvature, with some natural materials, but I couldn't use, he always used wood, but I couldn't afford using wood for his exhibition. So I was looking for some alternative material, something less expensive, and I found out that the paper tube made of recycled paper. This was all over my studio. We used to use the tracing paper. When we finish the paper, the center core is a paper tube, fax paper roll. Small diameter tube was used for the seating, and that bigger diameter was used for the freestanding partitions. And I found out, next please, it was much stronger than I expected. So I thought this can be main structural element for architecture. I started testing compression, tension, so on, to design the building out of this material. Next, please. 1990, when I started developing, nobody was really interested. Nobody talking about environment and sustainability. This is the temporary building for exhibition for half year, 1990. All the walls are made of paper tube. But this time, I didn't have a government permission to use this unusual material for building structure. So there is still support, the columns, and the roof is supported by steel column. But there's a 330 freestanding paper tube. Diameter is 55, which means a little bit less than 2 feet, and 8 meter long. It's like 27 feet long. And there is a few tubes. It's bigger. Diameter is 4 feet. Inside is a toilet. In case you finish with your toilet paper, you can tear it off inside the wall. Next, please. Then I wanted to get the government permission to use the paper tube as a building material, so I had to design my own weekend house. Also, I'm not kind of person to enjoy weekend. So this is the first building with government permission to use the paper tube as a structural element, as a permanent building. The house is still so clean because I have no weekend, the house is not used, so that's why it's so clean. Next, please. In 1997, I had also the commission to design the big roof for some construction company. Even they can walk under the roof when in winter with snow. Again, I had to test it to get the new permission from government. This is still there after 18 years. It's a good condition. Next, please. Year 2000, in Germany, city of Hanover, they have World Expo, and I was chosen by government to design Japanese pavilion because I was the only one who make a building out of recyclable material. Normally, the goal of design is when building finished, completed, but my goal was when building was demolished. Because also this theme of the expo was environmental issue, each country make their own pavilion for half a year, then they demolished, creating a lot of industrial waste. So that my goal was how to reuse or recycle all the building material when building was demolished. I work with local paper chip manufacturer. All the chip was created, manufactured locally, but within the part of our contract, they have to collect all the used paper after building was demolished to recycle. That was part of our contract. And the foundation, normally we make a concrete foundation, but concrete is rather a difficult material to recycle. So I made a wooden box filled with sand so that there's no concrete foundation. Membrane roof, normally we use a PVC membrane, but it's not environmental friendly. I invented the membrane out of paper, fire protected and waterproofed according to German regulations. And this scaffolding, yellow scaffolding, we can rotate by hand to create this sedimentary curvature by hand, little by little. This is the end of erections. So this, the correction, erection was made by hand without heavy machines. Next, please. And this is the connections is made by fabric tape. I didn't want to use complicated metal connections. It's just fabric tape. Next, please. This is completion. The length is 75 meter, which is about 250 feet. Next, please. I also, a period of my career, I was developing affordable housing system. This is a prefab house system called furniture house. It's called furniture house because the house is made of factory-made furnitures. There is no walls or no columns. Every structure is made of factory-made furniture, which is like closet and bookshelf, so on. It's modular. Already insulation is inside, painted inside, outside in factory. Just we brought in, connecting with the foundation vertically and horizontally between furniture and furniture. Next, please. Within 1 or 2 days, all the structural cabinet are installed, and you have to put the roof. You don't need to work with a skilled carpenter. Anybody can build it. This is single story. If you want to have a two-story, you can repeat putting furniture on top of this platform. Everything you see here, vertically, the closet, bookshelf, they are main structure of the building. That's all. Next, please. Idea of using storage unit for the structure was further developed for this project. This is a project called Nomadic Museum. There was a Canadian artist, Gregory Cobell, asked me to design his own museum over 40,000 square meters, 40,000 square feet, movable from city to city, country to country. This was really challenging to design building, easy to build, easy to dismantle, and also it has to be economical to transport from city to city, country to country. First museum was built in New York. You can see the Empire State Building on the very old pier. As you see, this pier was built on wooden piles on the water. Actually, the Titanic was supposed to arrive here, but unfortunately she didn't. That story shows how old this pier is. The structure was made in shipping container, not because shipping container is transportable. Shipping container is international standard. You can find used container anywhere in the world. So that this container was just rent locally in New York. And after the exhibition was over 3 months, this returned to the original shipyard. Then we moved to Los Angeles without container because we can rent same kind of container locally in Los Angeles. In order to make building weight lighter, less number of container, I created a checkerboard pattern. The only corner is overlapped with the existing connections. Next, please. This inside is the roof is supported by paper tube. Of course, it's empty. It's all thickness is 3/4 of an inch thick. Next, please. Then this is in Santa Monica Beach in Los Angeles. As you see, the color of container is totally different from New York because this was what we can rent in Los Angeles. And there's also the building is shorter because we just got the parking lot. We couldn't fit in the one linear length like New York, so I divided into 2 galleries. Also, the Gregory artist asked me to design extra theater space. So this is additional space in between the 2 galleries without adding any number of the container. Just I added the extra roof to have a 50% bigger size of the museum. This is in Tokyo. As you see, the color of the container is different because this is what I rented in Tokyo. Next, please. Left-hand side is one of my favorite building designed by Mies van der Rohe. This is the one near Chicago. This is this building is very monument. This is the first time in history of Western architecture the building become totally transparent. But if you compare this house with traditional Japanese house, when we open up all the sliding door, house can be transparent visually, but also physically, because inside and outside space are physically connected. But this Miesian house, Mies van der Rohe design house, I have to say it's only visually transparent because there's only one door, so that the physically outside, inside space are not connected. When I asked to design small house, the client was living in the same spot with traditional Japanese old house, enjoying openness and flexibility of the house. So I wanted to carry on the same kind of lifestyle into the new building. So that the 2 sides of the building is made by sliding glass doors, which you can open to connect inside and outside. Next, please. Even next, please. The edge of the roof, there is a curtain, PVC curtain. You can close or open to keep privacy, but also to work as a shading device. Next, please. This is a house to call 2/5 house. The name came from geometry. The rectangular plan was divided into small 5 rectangular spaces by sliding glass doors, and 2 of 5 are used as an indoor space. That's why I call 2/5 house. It's exterior front garden, indoor space, middle courtyard like this, indoor space again, and exterior again. So that wherever you have this sliding glass door, which open totally to connect the inside and outside space. Next, please. And this is a photo taken from front courtyard. When all the sliding doors open, the 5 rectangular spaces are connected to create one big spaces. I put the upper floor just Mies van der Rohe's glass box in order to make contrast between Miesian transparency with the traditional Japanese transparency underneath. Next, please. This is a house I call picture window house. Normally, picture window is a square window on the wall, framing beautiful landscape as a painting. Instead of making square window on the wall, I created the whole structure as a picture window to frame beautiful ocean view. We can open up the sliding doors. Next, please. And the back of the house also we can open up to connect to the inside of the house to the garden. Then we capture the view. Next, please. So this is the picture window framing beautiful horizontal view of ocean as a painting. Next, please. This is also the house, the main theme is the picture window built in Sri Lanka. After I worked to design the house for the victim of the tsunami after the earthquake 2004. And I was very lucky to have this opportunity to design the house for one of my sponsor for this humanitarian project. House was built on the hill. Everything was made with local material, with local craftsmen. Next, please. And even the inside the house, there's a different levels because it was built on the hill. You have to go up, and all the louvers to try to utilize the natural ventilations. Next, please. This is a big picture window framing the beautiful ocean view into the main living rooms. Next, please. This is a house I built in Japan. It's a rather big house as a Japanese house, but nothing to see outside, so that I created a beautiful courtyard and swimming pool, so that all the room has a view to the inside. Next, please. Also, I utilize the glass shutter, which is an industry made for the factories, airport, hangar. This is not for the residential use, but I use for the house to open to connect the inside the living room to the swimming pool directly. In the family room, when the glass shutter is open, room are totally connected with the courtyard. Next, please. This is another building with glass shutter. This is the headquarters in Tokyo for the Swatch Group. As you may know, Swatch Group owned many important watch companies in Switzerland: Omega, Tissot, Jacquard, Bramp, and so on. I wanted to utilize, again, natural ventilation instead of depending on air conditioning. So all the big the wires, the glass shutter can be totally open to utilize natural ventilations. And I create one of the problem. This was competition, although the client didn't ask, but I saw this is a problem. They wanted to have 7 boutiques of different companies. However, the land is very narrow and very deep, so that when we have the one shop in front facing to the commercial street, rest of the store has to be the back or upstairs or downstairs, and they have a different disadvantage of the location of the store. Only one store has a storefront. I wanted to give all the 7 stores storefront to the street. So what I did is opening the passage, connecting the main street with the back street, so that the general public can come into the passage, enjoying the green on the wall and the water feature. And there is a kiosk, glass showroom of 7 boutiques. They can have the boutiques on the ground on the passage, but they're small boutique. But if you want to see more watches, next please, you have to push the button. Each showroom is made of a hydraulic elevator, so that they bring your own customer to your own shops. So there's 7 glass showroom with the hydraulic elevator, bringing your own customer to your own boutique. So this interesting idea made all the shop the connection to the street directly, and made me win to this competition. Next, please. And this is the 5th floor. It's a big lobby. When the glass shutter is open, the space becomes semi-outdoor space. Client asked me to design the mechanical basement parking, but the problem is this entrance stop the kind of flow of this the passage. So I designed a special elevator where the car lift goes down to disappear. So that this was a new invention. Next, please. This is the condominium in New York, Manhattan. It's area called Chelsea. When I went to there late afternoon, there is many the galleries and the warehouses. They have all the metal shutter closed in the late afternoon. So I thought the metal shutter is kind of contextual material in the Chelsea area. I designed my condominium totally closed with the metal shutter. It's a standard shutter, but it's a perforated metal, so you can see through. And also I designed a big door called the bifolding door. When it's open, connecting inside of space with the terrace totally directly. This metal shutter works as for the security and also the shading for the sun. Next, please. And even when it's closed, you can see through like Empire State Building. And this is bifolding door totally open to connect inside outside, having natural breeze. In the summer in New York, there have many mosquitoes. It also works as a mosquito net. Next, please. This was my temporary office in Paris when I won the competition for New Pompidou Center, because I wanted to open my own office in Paris, but it was so expensive, I couldn't afford. So I asked the president of Pompidou Center if he lent me the terrace, our rooftop of the Pompidou Center in Paris. I want to make my own temporary office. So he agreed as long as I show that my project to the audience of the museum to show what is happening for New Pompidou Center. I brought my Japanese student, work with local French student. Next, please, during summer. Next, please, to build our own the studio by ourselves with a paper tube with wooden joint. So we are lucky to stay there 6 years without paying any rent, with a wonderful view of the Paris. But there is one problem, because we are kind of part of the exhibition. When my friend come from abroad, they had to buy ticket to see me because we are part of the exhibition. That was inconvenient. Next, please. This is a graphic panel I proposed for the competition from Pompidou. This is the map of the city. This is a train station, the 90 minutes from Paris by the high-speed train. The city is north side of the train station, and my site was the south side, which was totally empty. And I wanted to connect my museum with the city. What I did is following. This is the model I submitted. This is a gallery called Gallery Tube. It's 50 feet by 300 feet long, and 3 of them are shifted on top of each other. And the end of the gallery, they have big picture window framing. For example, this tube is facing the very important cathedral of the city, framing the cathedral as a picture window. Second tube is framing the train station, because Metz is very close to Germany. During the wars, always this occupied by German, went back to France. So there are many important German architecture, historical architecture is there. So second tube is framing the train station built by German architects. It's an important part of the monument in the city. And next, please. And I want to design the roof out of timber wood. This is where idea come from. This is traditional Chinese bamboo hut. When I found it, I thought this is very architectonic. The structure is made of woven bamboo, creating hexagon pattern, waterproofing by the oil paper. Underneath, there's a dry leaves as an insulation. So I made the roof like this pattern with hexagon, with timber, and the hexagon shape of the roof. Because if you see the map of the France, the shape of the country is nearly hexagon. For French people, hexagon is their national symbol. So that in order to win the international competition, I thought it's a good idea to use national symbol to win, and I was lucky. And also now I have another project in working in Israel. I use same pattern with different meaning. And this is the photo during the construction of the timber. Next, please. This is the completion. All the ground floor is covered by glass shutter. When this is before the opening, and the roof is made of the timber. Is a picture window. Next, please. And during the night, we can see through the structure of the timber. Next, please. And this is when the glass shutter open. The exterior cafe and plaza are totally connected with the inside of the museum. Next, please. This is the main the circulation tower in steel. All the structure is hung from the ceiling. Each element, each timber is overlapped on top of each other. Next, please. This is the picture window framing the cathedral. Next, please. I also had a project in South Korea designing golf clubhouse using the same pattern, same geometry, but it's a totally different type of structure. Because I don't play golf, I didn't know what is inside the golf clubhouse. And only my memory was when I was very, very small, my father used to take me to a practicing range. And that time, we put the golf, we used to put the golf on top of the wooden tee. So this is a structure like a wooden tee. That was from my memory in childhood. Next, please. So this is a very simple timber structure of the compression arch. The same geometry, but the other one tensile structure. This is compression arch. Next, please. This is the 7-story timber structure in the middle of Zurich in Switzerland. The pattern of the facade in aluminum was brought from the traditional building next door. And wherever you see the horizontal line, these are glass shutter which totally open. Next, please. This is a photo during the construction. It's a very simple joint without any steel connections. This, the 2 layers of the beams, and this is perpendicular beams. The profile is oval. Oval profile is inserted in here, so that this makes a rigid connection, because oval doesn't turn, so it's created a rigid, very simple rigid connection. Next, please. This is the main lobby. As you see, all the timber is exposed. Next, please. This is an auditorium space. Next, please. This is the space in between the office and the exterior. When glass shutter open, this becomes semi-outdoor space. It's very comfortable space. Next, please. This is the museum in Aspen, Colorado. This opened last summer. These are the photo of the other surrounding building in downtown Aspen. It's brick building or some wooden building, mostly like a cubicle shapes. So that I want to design my museum go with the other the building around in the downtown. So I designed cubicle building with the screens, woven screen. This is special material. This is made in paper with the laminated with special glue, with the timber, with the veneer finish. But this is the paper, not the wood. It's woven by hand, creating the translucent facade. Because the site was so small, I couldn't have normal big lobby on the ground floor. So what I did is bringing the guests, the audiences, using this as the see-through elevator in the corner, or there is semi-outdoor grand stair here. Next, please. Bringing all when you enter the museum, you have to take either grand stair or elevator to go up to the rooftop. Next, please. So then they enjoy the view of the mountains. This is a ski gerende. This is just like the experience of skiing, because when you do skiing, you take a lift to go up to the top of the mountain. Then you enjoy the view of the mountain before you come down by skiing. So it's the same. In this museum, you have to come to the top of the roof to enjoy the view. Then you come down little by little, just like an experience of skiing. This is the timber space frame. Again, I didn't want to use any steel connections, so the timber is curved. And I have only one bolt connecting all. So it's very simple. Next, please. And this is some galleries, and the benches and the screens and seating is made of the paper tube. Next, please. This is the latest museum opening next month in Japan, northern area called Oita Prefecture. Again, this museum has a bifolding door, which I designed for the New York condominium to try to connect to the inside of the museum with the street. Street can be a pedestrian street to have big event. So that it's not just museum. This is a place to have different event. And this city is very famous for the woven bamboo craft. I made this structure. This is not just pattern. The third floor of the gallery is made of timber structure, like a woven bamboo pattern, but it's a part of the structure. Next, please. And this is how the bifolding door opened to connect the inside of the museum with the street. Next, please. This is another gallery lobby of third floor with a timber roof, bringing natural light in. Next, please. Now, this is a project in Rwanda, 1994. There was a civil war between two tribes, Hutu and Tutsi. Over 2 million people became refugees. And I was very shocked to see this photo on the magazine, because I thought that Africa is quite warm, but they're freezing with a blanket. And I read the article during the rainy season, because the shelter built by United Nations was so poor, they couldn't keep them warm enough by this poor shelter. So I thought that we have to improve the shelter, otherwise any medical care doesn't help them. I wrote a letter to United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Geneva. There was no reply. So I had to go there by myself without any appointment. And I was very lucky to meet the German architect who was responsible for the shelter construction. And he hired me as a consultant because of the following reason. This is a typical UN shelter. They provide them plastic sheet, only plastic sheet, and refugees have to cut the trees to make a frame. Over 2 million people cut trees. This area used to be the forest, but all the tree is gone. So this became very serious deforestation, environmental problem, so that they have to go much further to cut more trees, so that the United Nations start providing them aluminum pipes. But aluminum is very expensive in this area, so that the refugees sold them out for money and cut trees again. So that the providing aluminum pipe didn't solve the problem of the deforestation. That is why when I proposed my idea of using recycled paper tube for the structure, I was hired as a consultant to develop this idea further. Next, please. This is some three prototype. I was very lucky to have support from the company called Bitra in Switzerland. They are very famous because they have a famous collection of architecture. This museum and factory was designed by Frank Gehry, and behind this they have the seminar house designed by Tadao Ando. They have another factory designed by Zaha Hadid, Alvaro Caesar. So they have most expensive collection of architecture, and my tent became their cheapest collection. This is a Byumba camp. Already Rwanda refugee came back to home, and I went to they are accepting refugee from Congo. And also I wanted to make something more comfortable. However, because of UN policies, if we provide them something too comfortable, they're going to stay longer. So that my aim was only stopping the deforestation, providing them very simple shelter. Each shelter costs only $50 US. It's just paper tube with a plastic connection and the plastic sheet. Next, please. Year after 1995, there was a big earthquake in Kobe, Japan. Over 7,000 people are killed. And also some of the city with all the wooden houses are totally burned fire after the earthquake. And I read the news on the newspaper. There was many Vietnamese former refugees gathering in this Catholic church. So I thought the minority people must have a more difficult time than normal Japanese victims. So I went to this church, Catholic church, but all the building was totally destroyed and fired after the earthquake. And they're having morning service around the fire, without any roof. So I proposed to the priest after the morning service, why don't we rebuild the church out of paper tube? And he thought I'm crazy, proposing building by paper after the fire. But I didn't give up. I commuted this church every morning, every Sunday from Tokyo. And that I got to know the Vietnamese refugees, next please. And I visited their house. They are living like this. Although government started building temporary housing, they didn't want to move into government temporary housing because the Kobe is a very dense city. All the temporary housing was built outside the city. So they have, Vietnamese people had the only job working for particular factory, particular area. If they move out to the government temporary houses, they're going to lose their job. That's why even it's such a poor condition, they wanted to keep living in this the shelter near the factory. But it's so unhealthy, but also the Japanese neighbor tried to kick them out because they are afraid this park is becoming like slum. So I thought we have to provide something more comfortable, but it has to be more beautiful to be accepted by neighbor people. So I started building temporary houses with the paper tube, with the beer crate as a foundation. I still remember in Japan that time, there are two major beer companies, Kirin and Asahi. I particularly asked the Kirin company because the other company make a plastic beer crate red, which doesn't go with color of the paper tube. And I also remember that we are waiting for the beer crates, and I thought they are very generous to donate us beer crates with beer inside, but it came totally empty. We are very disappointed. We just built the shelter with a student. Everything was built by a student. Next, please. And then the priest trusted me to rebuild the church out of paper tube as long as I do fundraising and bringing the student volunteers to build by ourselves. So this is a very small church. Paper tube was used to create the kind of the main space with the oval shape, which come from the floor plan of my favorite church in Rome, designed by Bernini. Next, please. This is completion. This first time they had a morning service under the roof. Also, the priest said that it's nice, they want to use maybe a few years, but actually it was there for 10 years because they loved it. But after 10 years, all the city come back and they decide to rebuild the bigger permanent structure. And that time there was a big earthquake in Taiwan. They asked us to donate this church. So we disassembled them, ship over, next please, to rebuild in Taiwan, as you see here. This became permanent church and the community center in Taiwan. So then I thought, what is a temporary structure? What is a permanent? Even some of the building made in concrete, if building was made by commercial developer to make money, they are very temporary because other developer buys the land, destroy the existing concrete building to put new one. So that as long as the building, even it's made in concrete, it's very temporary. But even the building made in paper, as long as people love it, this becomes permanent. So that is the difference, what is permanent and temporary. Next, please. In 1999 in Turkey, there was a big earthquake. I was invited to make temporary housing. All the material, paper tube, plastic beer crate was donated free from local manufacturer. Because it's very cold, children help us to put the waste paper inside the paper tube to make more insulated. Next, please. 2001, in west side of India, there had big earthquake, and I was invited again. And this was very easy to get the paper tube locally. There was a big textile company. They make their own paper tube to put the fabric around for shipping. So this was very easy. And the plastic was not available, so I made a roof out of locally available woven cane mat. And then I couldn't find the beer crates because nobody drank beer in this region. And then my local architect recommended me to use a Coca-Cola box. But I thought it's out of context and even red. So I didn't want to do it. I made a traditional mud floor instead of a Coca-Cola box. This was used, some of them are used as school, some of them are used as a house, at the home. Next, please. 2004, in Sri Lanka, not only in Sri Lanka, they have Sumatra earthquake, tsunami, the countries around there was totally destroyed. So this was the minority Islamic fisherman's village, which was totally destroyed by tsunami. And I made a permanent house for them. This is a model. Its white part is made of the mud brick locally available. And also in order to accelerate the construction and also provide them furnitures, I put the furniture in between the structure like this. So that also this, I provide them some semi-outdoor space because it's so hot. They're always eating and walking in the shaded area. This is right now that after we built the 50 unit of the houses, is the same place. Next, please. In 2008 in China, city called Chengdu, they had a big earthquake. Over 25,000 people are killed. Many of the public building like school was collapsed, destroyed because there was some collapse between the contractor and the authorities. And I started building temporary houses, but the local authority didn't want any foreigner to make temporary housing. But instead, I met the schoolmaster. They need a classroom. So I was asked to design elementary school classrooms. Next, please. I brought my Japanese student, work with Chinese student locally for 5 weeks together, using locally available paper tube. We made the 9 classrooms over 5,000 square feet, just by student. Next, please. So that now the children could come back to the school, original form. That's why they look so happy. Last year, they had another earthquake. I went to see the school to find out that the school was not damaged at all. And the schoolmaster was very happy. She said they want to continue using the school. Next, please. 2009, in Italy, it's a city called L'Aquila, near Rome. The old city was totally destroyed by an earthquake like this. And I found out that this city is very famous for the music. They have their own Philharmonic Orchestra and School of the Music, but there are no place to play. So that the student and the musician was leaving from school, from city. So I proposed to the mayor, why don't we rebuild some temporary concert hall? He said, I give you the land as long as you do the fundraising by myself. So next, please. And I was very lucky. Do you remember him? He is a former Prime Minister of Italy, Mr. Berlusconi. And he decided to bring a G8 summit to L'Aquila suddenly in order to ask the international community to support them. And this is a former Prime Minister of Japan, because we used to change Prime Minister every year. I'm sure Mr. Berlusconi doesn't know what he's holding, but this is a paper tube. And this is my model. In front of the press, journalists, they help doing my fundraising. So because of this, I got €500,000 to build a temporary concert hall. Next, please. So this is the completion. Because the wall has to be well insulated acoustically, normally they are made by concrete, but I concrete was too expensive, it's too difficult to demolish if necessary. So I made a wall with scaffolding filled with sandbag. So it's a very good, easy, and inexpensive make, but it's so ugly, so I just got some curtain to hide them. Next, please. This is the opening concert. The paper tube was used indoor. It's not structurally. To acoustical, I work with acoustical engineer to make paper tube for reflection and some absorption. Next, please. 2010 in Haiti, in Caribbean Ocean, they had a big earthquake. And this is the Port-au-Prince, the capital city. All the port and the airport were totally closed. So I had to fly to Santo Domingo. This is next door country, Dominican Republic. They share the island. So I had to drive over 7 hours to get to the capital, and the city was like this. And the people was living like such a poor condition. So I prepared, nothing available in Haiti. So I prepared all the shelter with the local student in Santo Domingo and brought over during the weekend to construct by ourselves. Next, please. This is a simple shelter with paper tube. And also we trained the local people to build by themselves. Next, please. 2011 in Japan, northern Japan, we had a big earthquake and tsunami. And this is the evacuation facility immediately after the earthquake. The problem is there is no privacy between families, so that they suffer mentally after they moved in. Next, please. So we started building partitions with paper tube and just curtain, because authority doesn't allow us permanent partitions. So this is very temporary. It's easy, open, close, depending on the time of the day, and we can adjust the size depending on the size of the families. Next, please. The same geometry, gymnasium. In 2 hours, this was well organized. We just built by students and also the victims. And overall, in the Tohoku area, over 500 coastlines. I went to over 50 facilities, built 1,800 units for the victims. Next, please. Also, unfortunately, they have to move into such a poor temporary houses built by government. They are not looking for the beauty or comfortability. But it's terrible. It's leaking, no insulation. You suffer with the noise of neighbor people, and the window cannot open because there's no privacy. It's so messy, there are no storage. I thought we have to improve them. And also, along this coastline, they don't have enough flat area. I thought they need to make multi-story housing. So that next, please, I propose this kind of 3-story houses with a shipping container, with checkerboard pattern again. And this one of the city called Onagawa town, they didn't have enough land. Only they had the leftover baseball ground, but they had to build the house for the 190 families. This was not big enough for the government house. So the mayor accepted my the temporary house idea. So this is made of a shipping container, checkerboard pattern. Inside the container is rather small, so we put children room and some bathroom unit. Within the container, in between container, there's a rather large space as a living and dining space. Next, please. This is the completion. This is the inside. I had to respect the size and the budget of the government houses. So although this is not bigger, the same size and same budget, still it's very comfortable, and the people like to continue living here. But those storage unit was built by my student. Next, please. And last year, again, I said in Chandu, they had another earthquake. The city called Yang, it totally destroyed. I was asked to rebuild nursery school with local student and US and Japanese student together with paper tube. Next, please. And also, next, please. In the Philippines last year, they have big typhoon and also the earthquake. And I went to there with students to build the temporary housing with paper tube frame with locally available woven bamboo as a fence, as a screen to have natural ventilations. In Philippines, they have big beer company called San Miguel, but they are so cheap. They didn't agree to donate their beer crate. So finally, I had to accept using Coca-Cola box. Next, please. This is my recent project. I found out in Japan that they don't have enough, the company to make enough number of the temporary housing anymore. We are expecting another big earthquake very soon. So that I designed a new system. This is the new structure is a foam core. It's an insulation material covered by fiberglass reinforced plastic, which normally used for the boat. So this is a panel, modular panel. We can make any sizes. And the thing is, not only designing this, I made a factory in developing country. Like I built a factory in Philippines in order to provide new employment, but also improve the local housing systems. But in case earthquake happen in Japan and surrounding country, we can import their system. So this is now that some problem cannot be solved by one country as long as we are globalized so much. So that this kind of even the problem has to be solved by with the different countries. So that providing employment in developing country, and also that this become the good solution to provide more housing quickly in Japan. Next, please. This is next, please. Last project in Christchurch in New Zealand. 2 weeks before earthquake in Japan, they had a big earthquake in Christchurch, and the most important Anglican church was totally destroyed. This was most important symbol of the city. I was invited to redesign the temporary church, which will be permanent. In order to respect, I analyzed geometry of the older church, for the elevations and the floor plan, using this geometry into the new design of my the temporary church. Next, please. This is completion. This is made by locally available paper tube, but the local factory was too small to make a structural tube. But I didn't want to import the paper tube from Australia or Japan. It's very important to use a local material with local people to build. So that this was reinforced by timber in order to use the local material. That's more important than making a structure out of paper tube. Next, please. The exterior is made of polycarbonate, bring natural light in. Next, please. This is the inside. And this foundation made of container as office and storage. Next, please. This is the last slide. Here's the bishop. He accepted my design, except the cross. The cross I proposed made in paper tube, but she said that making cross out of paper was too cheap. But I told her that in Japanese, the paper, it's called kami, also means it's God in Japanese. So I told her this is very good to make the cross out of paper. So I convinced, and now she's very pleased with this paper cross. So that although I said the traditionally architect make a monument for the privileged people, but this for example this disaster relief project become very monumental building for the city. Now this became new symbol of the city, bringing many tourists now. So that there is no difference between making monument or designing the humanitarian building. So that I like to continue designing the monument to be loved by people. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
That is just tremendously inspiring, the ways that you have reframed the nature of temporary and permanent, the way that you have brought together the notion of how we build monuments to our power and our wealth with how we build structures that actually sustain human lives. So it's very, very inspiring. Thank you very much. We have a presentation from the student body for you. Before we do that, I'd also like to introduce your colleague, Dean Maltz, who has come from New York City and has been helping with this presentation. So we're delighted that you could be with us. It's my pleasure to introduce our Student Assembly President, Krishna Thanapan. Krishna has a motto, I learned, which already impressed me, that a young man your age has a motto. And it is to give is to grow. And it feels very connected to this project. He spent his spring break traveling and helping re-roof homes with the American Red Cross, and has a strong passion for nonprofit work. Krishna hopes to take this opportunity to learn from your work and your ingenuity and create sustainable structures for deserving local North Texas communities. So please join me in welcoming the president of the Austin College Student Assembly, Krishna Thanapan.
Should I speak here?
He's going to give this.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to present these gifts to Mr. Bond on behalf of the Student Assembly and all the student body here. We hope you enjoy these.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm going to enjoy I'm very excited to see the student made some temporary structure, right?
Yes.
With paper too.
Yes,
But
exactly.
also I was very surprised because you don't have any school of architecture. But
Yeah. We don't, but when you are an Austin College student, the world is your oyster, and you can do just about anything. But your work is so interdisciplinary. It is aesthetics, it is material science, physics, architecture. I mean, it's holistic. So none of our students can do all those things, but many of them can do some of those things. So we'll be excited for you to see that competition. We'll do that after lunch. So thank you all very much for being here. I know you'll be wanting to wear your kangaroo gear in Paris and in Tokyo and in various sites of disaster around the globe. Mr. Bond is going to be spending time with our students this afternoon, and I'm going to whisk you away to begin preparing for that. And I would like to invite back to the podium, Dr. Langton. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you again to you.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us on this very special occasion. I want to announce that nominations are now open for the 2016 Posey Leadership Award. You may nominate online at, there it is right there, www.austincollege.edu/nominate. We are adjourned. Thank you.